special treat. Gave a guy a gospel track and they were doing what they do. That just makes you inside, you just want to, oh. I want to be nice because you never know. Maybe they're having a bad day or something. If that's really what mediocre at best. Hey man, playing what's detailed in it. So while he's playing, somebody has
Yes.
I've seen your bank account. I know you do.
For Ephesians 6:12. For against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Amen. You got it.
Who is it? Who said that? You're a hater. Judge, $10 in Sunday school. Give her another chance. Church, I felt you for a couple of the great night.
9389. Bring them in. 389. Here we go. Hark till the shepherd's voice I hear out in the desert dark and drear, calling the sheep away far from the shepherd's fold away. Bring them in, bring them in, bring them in from the fields of sin. Bring them in, bring them in, bring the wandering ones to Jesus, who'll go and help this shepherd kind, help him the wanderings ones to find, who'll bring the lost ones to the fold, where they'll be sheltered from the cold. Say now, bring them in, bring them in, bring them in from the fields of sin. Bring them in, bring them in, bring the ones on the mountain where they'll be. Say now, bring them in, bring the wandering ones to Jesus. 208, grace greater than our sin. 208. 208, you know this one. Everybody knows this one. Say now, our guilt yonder on Calvary's mount, outpoured there where the blood of the Lamb was spilled. Say now, praise, praise God's grace, 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 God's grace, grace that is greater than all our sin, sin, and despair like the sea waves cold, threaten the soul with infernal points to the refuge, the mighty cross. Say the marvelous grace, infinite grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. All together and call us greater than all our sin. Dark is the stain that we carry. Look, there is flowing a crimson tide. Wider than snow you may be to grace, 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 God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse
See, hey, you ever just look out and find yourself in good company? Like I look out and notice that me and Emma are just so much alike. Meaning, no, I'm not a little Filipino girl. But while any music's playing, I just start doing this, and I look out and I really do this, and I look out and I see Emma doing it. Is she copying me? She's just making fun of me? And so I stopped doing it for a minute, and she's still doing it. I was like, oh, good. It must just be a natural thing for really smart people to do. Huh? Notice there's only 2 of us doing it, so be glad I didn't go the other way with that. Look, if you, I don't know. I was just sitting here thinking, going, man, I hope nobody goes, what a frivolous. Here, I said something in a message last Sunday to everybody. And she's the only one that said, hey, remember you said if we memorize that verse, and she even gave me an out. And she goes, I don't know if you said 20 or 50. We both know I said 50. And so she said it. And so I'm sitting here going, man, I don't walk around with I used to walk around with big fat stacks of cash in my wallet, but not anymore. Somebody gave me some money they owed me. And I have a little hiding place in my wallet where, well, man, that worked out pretty good. But I want, not just my little girl, but I want anybody to, if I say something, I want you to believe it.
Versus when we went out today, we went to Taco Bell, then from Taco Bell we went to Wendy's to get some free things, and there was a veteran wearing a veteran's hat, and every single one of the kids walked up to him and said, thank you, and shook their hand.
All right, were you one of those kids? Good job. Good job. So what you're trying to say is they might be listening?
They might be listening.
How scary is that? I say a lot of things, man. If they're really listening, we could be in trouble. All right. So I'm listening.
I said, mine's a grown man, he doesn't listen as well as they do.
Yeah, offer him $50, see what he does. I bet he hears every word of it. All right, what are we doing here? Titus, look, if you guys see me yelling at my kid about get a songbook and open it and sing, I want my kid to open the songbook and sing. Just opening the songbook and following those words, man, there's so much good stuff in our hymnals. Are you right? You believe me? What do they call it? Systematic theology. Systematic theology. Just by reading along as he sings and you're getting, you have a sermon ready for tonight, then you better open that songbook and every song. Yes? Should we make Judge pray for the offering? All right, Titus, will you pray for the offering? Am I just being mean to you? All right, will you pray for the offering nice and loud, please?
Dear Jesus, thank you for this day. And please bless the offering. Amen.
Amen. We're going to have somebody come give their testimony. Obviously, I don't have to tell you to pay attention, but and I respect and great love for my grandpa, and I don't mean grandkids. Well, we'll leave that alone. That's, well, what was left. Okay, I knew some things in him that nobody, like, he was a man's man, and I love that guy, but man, he was tortured due to war and put on the outside. And I just think, man, what would have happened if my grandpa could have got some Jesus in him? So, Brother Fred, I love you, and I always go back to the first day I met him. The first day I met him, we were sleeping in the church because shoes are, what do I? Yeah, he asked me, what do you think? Nice or sweet? And I was like, oh, Lenny, you're stupid. You should have been nice about it, or something like that. And he's the Toyota Corolla for Jesus. He's Brother Fred Rickard, would you come please?
Well, you'll have to bear with me. I need a Purple Heart. Have you held one? No. Let pass this through. Back in Civil War He fought for the North. 12 years in both of them. My younger brother, Mike, which most of you know from here, he was 12 years, and he was a crew chief on B-52 bombers coming out of, they was flying out of Thailand. And my brother-in-law, Bo, he was in the Marine Corps. He was in for 4 years, and me and him both served in Vietnam. When I was in school, me and my brother, we always played Army and stuff back in the woods and shooting at each other and whatever. But we always wanted to go to the service, but my whole family's been military, and I'm real proud of it. Through my high school years, she had to have a lot of stomach operations from ruptures and stuff. Years, I would go to school because there was a aircraft company till 2 through my high school. I never went to the, and we would go to McKeep. It was really hard, and I'd give my checks to my dad, and it helped him pay the house payments and get groceries and everything. I would say I would do that, but out here, their kids don't know they don't know the family and how to work and help family. It's all out for them. My mom and dad was back to work, and when she came to Florida, this was my senior year, I went down and joined the Marine Corps, and I never heard the end of that one. But this was in 1967. Vietnam was moving hot. And a buddy of mine, well, there was 2 buddies of mine, we all went down and joined on a buddy system. The one buddy couldn't wait till the end of the summer, so he left in the beginning of the summer. We was going out, flying out. He always played football through high school, and all I'd done was worked, but I was running the woods and chasing coon dogs all night. And that keeps you in good shape. We was flying out, and he said, if you don't make it, Fred, he said, I understand, because you never played football or nothing. And I thought, okay. When we landed out in San Diego, we got off of the plane, we got on a bus, and everybody was sitting in the seats next to each other in the seats, and there was one seat went across the back of the bus, and the guy in the middle, there's another guy would sit on his lap, and they would go like that clear up to the front of the bus. And so everybody was sitting, but the middle row, everybody was sitting on someone else's legs. And when we got to San Diego, they took us off the bus, and we was running to them yellow feet. I know you've seen these yellow feet prints on the bases. You better find a pair of the feet prints and put your feet on, because these DIs was chewing you alive. And my buddy's legs, there was some guy sitting on his, I got a seat, but my buddy, his legs was quivering because some guy had sit on him clear from the airport. And a DI asked him, says, why is your, he called him a few names, and he said, why is your legs trembling? He says, well, if somebody would sit on your legs from that airport, they'd tremble too. And about that time, I heard and I kind of looked around, my buddy was laying on the ground. So anyway, we finished boot camp. So he went on home. My mom and dad, they always had a, I don't know, was always mad about him because he left me there. We was on the rifle range, and they was taking snipers, a lot of snipers, guys that were really good with rifles, and I thought I wasn't going to be a sniper. And I'd throw a few rounds off every once in a while. So I qualified, but I didn't have to go to sniper school. So we was getting ready to graduate, and they was giving our MOSs out. Our MOSs is what jobs they assign you to in the military. All of them was saying 0311, 0311. That was a grunt. That's a guy just with a rifle. He got to me and he said 0331. I thought, I wonder what this is. I said, what's 0331, sir? He said, that's your machine gun school. He said, the life expectancy is 6 seconds in a firefight. And I thought, well, you didn't like me all through this. But I went on, and when I went to machine gun school, I qualified with a machine gun. I broke the Marine Corps record, and I fired for 3 Chinese generals, and I brought the papers in and showed them to Pastor Lenny. And I'd put on exhibitions and stuff. But when I went to I came home for 30 days, and I shipped out for Vietnam. And when I got to Vietnam, they sent me to Phu Loc. It's the valley where the French was wiped out, and they're supposed to let you kind of get oriented into the place before they take you out anywhere. But he said, we're out of machine gunners. And I didn't like that either. But, so I grabbed a gun and we went out. As long as I coon hunted, a lot of times I could walk through the woods and never turn a flashlight on because of the way the moon was. But over there, I never seen it so black. I had to actually keep touch to make sure where I was so I didn't get lost. I was scared to death. Here I am with about 200 rounds of bandolier ammo hanging on me, my M60, and I got a shovel, and I was scared to death. When you're in a jungle and the moon's shining, I don't care what it is, you're not going to see nothing because all the foliage over there covers you. So we got to some place, and he said there's supposed to be a company come down this road. And he says, dig in here. And he said, anybody out there, he says, is the enemy. So I dug and I dug and I dug. I don't know, I probably had to climb out the next morning. But me and my A gunner, we was laying there, it was his first day too, and we was scared. But I prayed that night. Like you say, there's no atheist in a foxhole. I prayed and prayed that night that nobody would come down that road. And the Lord, I guess, answered my prayer because there wasn't anyone came. The next morning, we got up and we made a sweep through some rice paddies and got back to our camp. And we had to stand guard duty at night in our perimeters and stuff, but I've never been so scared in my life as that right there. And about that time, they said we was going to move out. And the Viet Cong and the North Vietnam Army was getting a big push for the Tet. So they loaded us up on trucks. And I had my 60 up on the truck, and because you always had one on the cab and kind of oversee everything. And we got to Phu Bai, and they put us on helicopters. And we stayed in Phu Bai probably about 6 or 8 hours, and then they put us on a helicopter, these big Chinooks, the kind that the back end lets down, and they can load them. Well, they raised the back end up after we was on there about halfway up, and had me and another machine gunner get out on the tail of that thing and lay on that floor. And that give that Chinook helicopter a lot more firepower if somebody was shooting back at them. And all our guys was on the helicopter, and me and him was back there laying on the door. I was scared again. They flew us into Hue, outside of Hue. It was a battle going on there that you would not believe. They said we was outnumbered 17-1. So we all figured, we'd kill 17 guys each and we'd be all right. So anyway, we was fighting. You'd fight block to block, house to house, block to block. But we wasn't trained for city fighting like that. We was trained for jungle warfare. But it's on-the-job training when you need it.
Yep.
So we was fighting along, and some of the atrocities you see, when we was going in on a truck after they dropped us off, there was the babies laying along the road there, like in a ditch. They were just laying there dead. I mean, like people didn't care for life or something there. I don't know what it was, but it was really, it was terrible. Anyway, we was fighting block to block, and one day we was excuse me. We didn't have much food and stuff with us. One morning we was sitting and we was sharing a cup of coffee, and about 4 of us sitting there, and inside this room before we kept moving up, and we had a little heat tab. We heated the coffee water, and by that afternoon, 2 of them guys that I was sitting drinking coffee was no more. They was blown away. I think of these guys. I think of my friends that I left over there. And I wonder why me. Anyway, we kept fighting. And one night we was on an ambush. We got laid down in the ditch along the road. And I had my 60 set up on the end, and then everybody was down through the ditch, and them guys was trying to rest. I mean, we lost guys every day. I mean, it was there was like a little walk next to me, and my A gunner poked me, and he whispered, them are gooks beside us. And I looked up and I could see the moonlight. I could see their uniforms and stuff. And they were so close, like this mic here, I could have reached out and tripped one of them. They was kicking gravel in the road, into the ditch where I was at. So I said, I made a decision, do I open up on them? There must have been 30, 40 of them coming by me. I thought, should I open up on them? What would you do? I was tired of seeing my friends killed. I looked down the road, I looked back at them. I said, not tonight. They're not going to die tonight. And I let them go. But that's haunted me for years. If I shouldn't have killed every one of them, I don't know if I could have got all of them because it was so dark. But I think of that all the time. I know my friends didn't die that night. Next morning we was moving on up, and we was kept on fighting. And they wanted me to come back to the rear, and they put me on a truck. I was riding security on a medevac truck for a little while, and so I put my 60 up on top of the truck. It's like a 6x, big truck, and we would drive up and down the streets, picking up our wounded and picking the bodies and stuff up, putting them on the truck. And I would take my 60 and I would keep fire down off of them. And one day, one of them said, Rickard, I need help with this one. I left my 60 and I turned around, went back to the back of the truck, and I reached down, I grabbed this guy's flak jacket, and I pulled him up on the truck. I was looking down inside of him. He didn't have no head her arm, his shoulder, this part here was all gone. I don't know who he was, but I know he was one of us. It was somebody's son, father, or whatever. I pulled him up on a truck, and that truck was a mess. We took him back, and I told my sergeant, I said, I can't do this. I said, I would rather be on the front lines. He said, okay. And I left and caught back up with my outfit, and we was fighting there. When I went into weigh, I weighed 210 pounds. And at the end of the month, when I come out of weigh, I weighed 165 pounds. It was nothing but nerves and not having nothing to eat, drink. I was telling Renell, one guy, I went over to a well where a guy, some of the Vietnamese we was fighting with, their army, he gave me a bowl of rice with some crushed up little fish in it. Kind of reminded me of them fish that Renell had there. That's why I looked at them when he brought them around. I got a flashback. Got a flashback from an anchovy. But anyway, he gave me some of that, and I sat there and eat it, and I couldn't eat it, and I throwed everything up. But anyway, we went back to fighting, and we get water. We have to take quinine pills and put into your water. Everything you drink tastes like quinine. Your coffee tastes like quinine when you get it. But the battle went on day and night for a solid month. I was up in a room. We was laying down fire around the streets and stuff out of this window. And they snuck around and shot a B-40 rocket, tried to blow the window out. And they hit the bottom of outside the window. It blew me back in the room. That's why I don't have a good arm right now. And when it blew me back in that room, I could see everybody at home, all my family. I could see them like a flash going in front of me. I don't know what it was. It was shock or whatever. But when I finally got my senses and got up off the floor, the corpsman was in the back room, and I jumped up and was going to go around him, and I couldn't find my arm. And it flopped around in front of me because it severed the nerves and crushed the bones and everything, and it was just hanging. It's like a dish rag. And I went around, and he grabbed me, put me on the ground, and gave me 2 shots of morphine in my leg. And we laid there a couple of days before they got us out. But they got me back and put me in like a little MASH unit, and they couldn't get the shrapnel out or nothing, but they wrapped it all up, and they took me out in another Chinook helicopter to an air base, and they lifted me. They took me to. There was an air base there in Vietnam. They flew. There was a whole bunch of us in the plane. It was like we was racks hanging on the sides inside the plane, and just stacked like this. Guys wounded, and they flew us to Japan. We didn't stay in Japan. We just landed there and picked some guys up. They flew us into Alaska. They opened them big doors in Alaska. This was the last of February. That snow blowed inside that door. I was looking out and I thought, man, I'd love to come back here. It was beautiful. Anywhere but where I came from. We was naked because they stripped all our clothes off of us and just put a blanket over us. and some nurse come on there and put a pair of wool socks on me. And they flew us out of there and we went to went to St. Louis, and I got to call my mom dead that night, and it was Janet's birthday. And they went nuts when I picked the phone up. It was me. And I told my dad, I said, I just got wounded in the arm. He said, they don't send you home being wounded in the arm. He said, did you lose your arm? I said, no, I didn't. I still got it. It's hanging here. And so they flew us the next day up to Great Lakes Naval Hospital. I spent a year in the Great Lakes Naval Hospital going through surgeries and everything there. They, one day, guys would come in and you'd ask about where your outfit, 015, that was my outfit. No, I haven't heard anything on them. And finally one guy says, you know, he says, I heard that they got wiped out in an ambush when they left away. Man, my heart dropped. I don't know. I don't know why I wasn't there. I prayed all the time I was there. I guess God had other things for me. Anyway, y'all heard of Martha Ray. She came up one time and she was doing a play in Chicago called Goodbye Charlie. Martha Ray, I loved that woman. She died in October 19, I think it was 96. When she died, I cried. She was a colonel. She was with the reserves, but she would help work on guys over there that were wounded, and she'd go in and help on surgeries and stuff. But she was also an entertainer. But she loved veterans. They buried her. They was going to put her in Arlington, but they said she never did want to go to Arlington. She's buried in Fort Bragg with the Special Forces in Fort Bragg. She took us downtown and put a bunch of the wounded guys on the front row there, like that front row. And they done the play and everything. It was a good play. You ever get a chance to see it, it's a good one. And after the play, she come down, she hugged us, and she kissed every one of us. By the time I got home, other than my family, she was the only one that showed any of us guys any love. We was told not to wear our uniforms to town. Don't wear our uniforms off the base. We had one guy wore his uniform down Chicago. Somebody shot him and killed him walking down the street. It puts a lot. Why? You spend all that time in Vietnam and you come home and the people you fought for kills you. That's the kind of battle we was fighting. You walk anywhere and nobody cared. I mean, you was a piece of garbage on their feet. They didn't care. They was all into this hippie stuff and all this stuff. Anyway, after a year up there, I went home. They retired me. I got to thinking about everything, and I got drinking heavy. I bought a car, and I was anything I could, any type of money I got, I was drinking. So I kind of brought this tonight. I took this into a pawn shop and told him I wanted to pawn it for enough money to get a case of beer. He told me, he said, "You're crazy." He said, "Get out of here." I just wanted to get rid of it just to get me some alcohol. I dropped my lowest right there. Didn't mean anything to me. I drank for a long time. You can ask my sister Janet. She said she thought I was an alcoholic. But finally I got married in 71. I was still drinking heavy. My wife, she was going to, in 1978, she was going to a revival, Grace Baptist Church in Middletown. I'd finally got a job in a sun, and they said they would try me. They didn't know if I could do the job because of my arm. But when somebody tells me that, don't get in my way, because I will do that job. Had a lot of people say, you can't do this, you can't do that. That burns in me. I can't stand that. They don't know what you can do. There's not a disability in this country, or anybody that's got a disability. I see people stand on these corners with disability. They can do something. And I hated it. Anyway, I got a job there, and in 78, she was going to church with my sister. They was having a revival. And I was working swing shift, and every so many weeks I would have the weekend, like 4 days off through the week, on a weekend. But you'd work up on me, you need to go to church with us. I said, I ain't doing it, I ain't not going. And finally I promised her, I said, I'll go with you Sunday, I'm off this weekend. So I went with them, and sure enough, they had to sit in the second row. And everything the preacher preached, it seemed like he was preaching it right at me. The choir was singing everything. It was something else. And when they give the altar call, I was standing and I had my hand on the front of the front pew, and I was gripping that thing. There's probably still fingerprints in it. But finally I went up, and my wife went with me. So in September 13th of 78, I accepted Christ as my Savior. I went back to work. I got baptized that night because I wasn't going to wait. I went back to work, and I was preaching to everybody I could run into. I said, guess what happened to me? And they could not believe it, because I was running with the guys I worked with. We was running bars after work and everything, leaving her set home with them kids. I was a piece of garbage. I was not preaching, but I know them guys got tired of hearing John 3:16, because that's about all I knew. But I would talk to them and tell them my story and what happened and everything. And finally, I led one guy and his wife to the Lord. He had a little baby, and I said, you know, if you die, you'll never see that baby again. Or if that baby dies, you'll never see it again. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, she'll probably be in heaven, and you could go to hell. And he was the type of guy where you could shock him. He went to church with me, him and his wife, and they both went up and got saved. And he said, would you go talk to my mom and dad? I said, sure I will. So we went over to his mom and dad's house, and they went to church with us, and they accepted the Lord. It was probably within that same year that they both died. But it seemed like everybody I was talking to was dying. The guy across the street from me, I was working in my garden, and I had felt something say, go across and talk to the guy across the street. And I couldn't stand that guy. When I first moved there, me and him didn't get along. And I kept working my garden. And he said, it's something I know of the Holy Spirit. Go talk to that man across the street. So I go in the house, I told my wife, I said, something keeps telling me to go across the street and talk to that guy. She said, you don't even like him. I said, I know that. So I went, and I went in and was talking to him. I said, invite you guys to church Sunday, and I'll buy your dinner after church. And I said, we'll go eat dinner somewhere. I'm not going to do that. He says, I'm about to retire. He says, I'm driving my truck. He said, I'm going to retire, and after we run around a while, he says, I'm liable to do that. I said, well, the invitation's out there. That Monday, he left for work, and when he went into Kentucky, a semi pulled out in front of him alongside the road, and he hit it in the back. He was driving a flat-nose semi, and he hit the back of that trailer on that other semi and killed him right there. His wife would not talk to me no more. They sold her home. I just hope that he thought about it while he was driving and accepted Christ. But I was doing pretty good. I was talking to people and getting people saved. Well, I was doing what I'm supposed to do. And but they started bringing the boat people over here. And I still had that hatred for Vietnamese people. I hated them people because what they'd done to my friends and stuff. And when they bring the boat people over here, I started backsliding again. I got where I started drinking again. And after a while, I was almost back to like I was. When I was in Way, they had a cart come down the street one night when it was dark, and it had the wheels on it, on that rock wheels. You could hear it way up. And they was moving ammo in it. And there was a old man, old woman, and some kids on it. And they told us anybody in front of us was the enemy. And I couldn't fire on them, I couldn't. And they moved down a little bit, and there was a tank pulled up beside the house that I was sitting in. And he opened up on that whole cart, killed every one of them. But they found ammo and stuff on them that night. But my boys had these big wheels. I know you've seen it, big wheels. And when you ride them, every time they'd ride them, I'd get these pictures of being in Way again with that cart coming down the street. It was like a flashback. And I would end up throwing their big wheels in the garbage. I wouldn't let them ride them. My wife told me, she said, this was before I retired. She told me, she said, you need to get some help with the VA. So I went to the VA, and they put me in-house for PTSD for 3 months. I couldn't leave. So after 3 months, I come out, and I was having trouble at work too, and I finally retired. But the nurse, one of them psychologists at the VA told me, that said, those triggers, you have to watch triggers. Like the cart, that was a trigger. There's a lot of things in my life that had a lot of triggers to it. But when I got operated on, the doctor up there told me, he said, my arm will finally give me back trouble. And he says it's like carrying a weight around because you can't use it that much. And I was starting to have back problems. And in 2003, I went in for back surgery. And when I went in for back surgery, I went in at 8 in the morning, and I didn't get out out of surgery till 9 that night. They cut me in the center, clear to my backbone, and then rolled me over and went through my back to my backbone. And they put rods and screws in there. I finally coming to, and my wife said, I said, how's everything going? She says, not good. She says, you're dying. They couldn't get my blood pressure up. They couldn't get my breathing up because I was a heavy smoker and I was welding for all them years. And she said, you're dying. And I said, what are you going to do? She says, there ain't nothing we can do. She said, there's one doctor here that says they can help you. It was outside the hallway. And she said, I said, well, bring them in. She said, well, they won't come in unless you say they can. I said, well, who is it? She said, their name is Phong Vong. I said, you're kidding me. She was Vietnamese. I said, are you kidding me? She said, no. She come in the house. I told her, well, come on in. She stepped in the room, and my head went crazy. And she come over to me and just started patting my arm. And she started telling me, she said, well, I was in Vietnam the same time you was, but I wasn't up in Hue. She said it was too bad up there. She was a baby doctor. Her and her husband, the Viet Cong, had raped her and really messed her up. But her and her husband escaped from there, and they was one of the boat people. So she had a medical background over there. When she come over here, she finished her college through the years that I was here, and she was the head of ICU in Middletown Hospital. And I said, well, I'll use you as a hot doctor if you're the one that can save me. She says, I will. So she took a scalpel and put up here. She was going to cut me and put a tube in. And I thought, here I am all these years, now I got one's going to cut my throat in the hospital. So she cut. I said, well, how do you know where to cut? She said, I'm going to cut where I think it should be. I thought, oh, no. And she cut my throat there and put a tube down in there. And they put me on a breathing machine and put me on vents and stuff. And things started picking up a little bit. And that night, I laid in my room up there. And I told the Lord, forgive me for the hatred of these people that don't even know my name. I don't know them. They don't know me. But all I can do is just forgive me. And she would come in every day and check on me. And we'd talk and stuff. And she's probably one of the nicest women I ever met. And she was, to this day, I can go up there and call her up and she'll talk to me. But Jill was in there with me. She knows her. And she's a wonderful woman. But you can't live in the past. You can't live with hatred in your heart for nothing or for nobody. Anytime there's hatred in your heart, it's like a cancer. It eats you. You don't know it's happening. But before long, it's taking this away from you. It's taking that away from you. And it's taking the ones you love, it's going to take them away from you. Just because of your own hatred and your guilt. So you can't live in the past. I tried to do it myself, and I can't do it. The only way I can do it is with Him. And that's the way, from then on, that's the way I lived. And she passed away, and I prayed to the Lord. My wife passed away in 2011, and I prayed to the Lord. I said, just give me a woman that loves you as much as I do. And she gave me Jill. I just hope this helps somebody. Hatred, and if you got any hatred against anybody, you need to get it right. It's nothing but love. Thank you.
Man, that's something else, man. I love you, Brother Fred. Any of that stuff he said man, I'm sitting there going, no wonder I like that guy so much. 13th. Like, man, I love that guy. Whew. That's some powerful stuff, man. You guys hear that? Terrified. Scared to death. How old were you? 17, 18, 18, 19, 20 years old. A kid. Fly all the way over to somewhere else, sitting very first night, just got there, and you're in a hole waiting for people to come down the road and shoot at you, praying, dear God, please don't let anybody come down this road. So what is courage? That's courage. What is courage? It's not the absence of fear, it's just being scared to death and doing what you got to do anyway. So Titus, I keep looking at you because I know you have this fear of talking to people, and you face it every week with that guy, Brother Derek. And look what we have in our church. I love these guys. I love that guy. We're done, but we're gonna have an invitation. But I had somebody come up to me and say, you know, I keep forgetting to do this, and I know if I ask you, you're gonna forget to do it. So I had somebody come and say, hey, I need to join the church. And I said, I just kind of thought you were already, you know. I all the technicalities I'm not very good at. But Brother Byron is going to come join the church tonight after church. Amen. Now, I think we have to vote or something. I don't know where I got the voting thing from because that's the way they always did it. I don't know if it's biblical or not. But you know how I am. I'm all about traditions of men, so I don't know. So Paul Byron May, and how fitting that his parents are here. And when he first came here, you know, and then I was like, man, this guy's sharp. And then he came back. And I was like, man, what's wrong with this guy? You know, what's wrong with this guy? And he kept coming back, and he was on this, we thought it was a limited, you know, just a contract. And when that contract's over, I'm moving on. And that's, you know, how Ray and Rennell we got them in Indiana. And, man, we just, you know, that's what we were praying. Pray that his contract stays on. And he just keeps hanging around and hanging around and hanging around. And in spite of us, I believe, or in spite of me. But he just moved in, bought a house down the road. His parents came to help him move in. And, you know, I just like I said the other day, man, I think, you know, it's like a good marriage when you always think you got the better end of the deal, you know. And I've talked to Miss Jill before, and she thinks you got the better end of the deal too. No, she thinks she got the better end of the deal, and that's how it is with Byron. I know we got the better end of the deal here, and so what are the requirements? Been scripturally saved.
Yes.
Been scripturally baptized by immersion.
Yes.
And so he wants to join our church, and so I don't know where we take the vote, but I mean, somebody will probably be mean just to be mean. I'm going to say his brother Rennell, crucify, huh? So, all those in favor of taking Brother Byron in as a member of the church, would you please say aye? Aye. All those against, say nay.
Go away.
Oh. Brother Byron, welcome. Thank you. Now, we're going to pray, you know, Man, that's some powerful stuff. Stay here, please. And when we get done, we're going to pray and just come forward and welcome Brother Mr. May. Welcome him to the family. That's the thing about family, you know. You just welcome him to the family. And Brother Fred, I love you. And I thank you for your service. And, man, the more I just sit here and think, man, if my grandpa would have Same exact things, man. The hatred and the bitterness and the drinking, and it turned him into, somebody nobody wanted to be around but he would open up to me as a kid. I don't know why. I was just a kid. And he would open up to me, and I knew there was somebody in there that wasn't that guy that everybody else sees. I love that guy. I love you. Brother Byron, would you close us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this evening, thank you for this day, thank you for this church. Pray that you'll be with the members of it and those that enter its doors and people that we come in contact with. And use us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay.
Listen.
Yeah.